I have mailed out really probably 1,000 packets of seeds. And that's all I can do. I can't keep your grandmother's white zinnia alive. One person just can't do it. And so that's where I am. I'm not just a writer. I am a gardener, and I am trying to do my tiny little part.
Welcome to episode 47 of the Seed Farmer Podcast. The podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Tournesol Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. Today, we have a special New Year's Eve conversation on the podcast. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it as a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/support-podcast. I don't have much news to start this episode with other than to say that I have opened my crop planning class for registrations. It's called Farm Spreadsheets for All Seasons. It has videos. Well, it's based around a set of spreadsheets for crop planning and has videos to support you do that. There's a link in the show notes. So that's the news. And that brings us to today's conversation. Janisse Ray is this episode's guest. Janisse is a writer, naturalist, and farmer based in South Georgia. She is the author of The Seed Underground and Journey in Place and writes the Substack Trackless Wild. In this episode, Janisse and I talk about how you learn to be in place and the concept of placekeeping. We explore how this works its way into seed work and foodways. We also discuss the tension between trying to save every seed and focusing on growing a few crops. In the deep dive, we talk about growing okra for seed. I invited Janisse for this New Year's Eve episode because I wanted us to start the year grounded in the idea of place, root and connection, and inspire you in all your seed work. Enjoy the conversation, and Happy New Year. Hi, Janisse. Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
I thought I would just start off with an actual quote from your book, Craft and Current, which came out last year. And so it starts off, in the spoiler of a town, I heard stories endlessly. The characters in the stories were people I knew, were people connected to people I knew. The settings of the stories were places I knew. From a very young age, I understood myself to be part of a vast, tightly woven, land-based literature, whether I can name it as such or not. That kind of childhood is, of course, disappearing. And there are so many things that I could ask you about that. And I know this is a seed podcast rather than a story podcast, but they're so interlinked. And I guess it's that land-based literature part and how it all permeates everything that I wanted to bring you on to talk to you about. And maybe I would ask you to start and tell us a little bit about, I guess, your seed story, but you can tell it any way that you want to bring it together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Dan, that's so interesting that you started with that quote, and I didn't realize that you had that book. It's actually such an important place to start because when I went to school and studied with the Western nature writer William Kittredge in Montana, and Bill always said that the best stories that you're ever going to tell are the ones that are about your passions, So I made, even when I was in grad school, I made a list of my passions. And now when I'm working with other writers, writing students, I have them do the same. It's the thing, the best stories are the ones that are just flaming inside of us. And that's why I wrote this book, which I thought when you said I'm going to read a quote, I thought you would pick up The Seed Underground, A Growing Revolution to Save Food. So I was so shocked when you picked up Craft and Current. But it's why I wrote that book. You know, when I'm a nature writer, my entire mission is to, and I can get so passionate about this that I start to cry, but my mission is to really help people and help people lead different lives, more sustainable, just, greener lives on the planet. And everything that I do is to that. Like somewhere when I was young, the natural world imprinted on me. It tapped me to speak for it, to tell its stories, and I that's what I do all day, every day. It's how I live. It's how I operate. So after I had published a few books, I was thinking, okay, as traditional writers do, or writers with traditional publishers, you're thinking, what would the next project be? And it was that, oh my God, I've always, like, my first garden was when I was 12 years old. I've loved to garden. I was introduced to seeds and seed saving at a very young age from my grandmother. And that is part of the land-based literature. And so I pulled um, I pulled the seed that my grand this little seed is called a jack bean. It's a novelty seed. There's some cultures that eat it, but not very many. And you can see it's a pretty big seed. It's about 3/4 of an inch long, white, with a long black eye. My grandmother one day had these in a little dish on her on a buffet in her dining room, and I was so taken with a bean that size, and I asked her the name, and she told me Jack Bean. I had to go back to the national. You know, we have a national system of seed. We have a national seed repository here in the United States, and luckily, this bean was available, and I re-got copies of it, and I still grow it. But I was probably 12 years old when that happened, and I'm still so enamored with the stories of seed. And you're exactly right. It's sometimes I think of a seed as a jump drive. It's this little piece of technology that is absolutely encoded with information, evolutionary wisdom, and it also has a story. Like encoded in that jump drive is the story of that plant. And as a writer, it absolutely fascinates me. And I can see from your work that that's part of why you're drawn to seeds as well.
So, what does growing seed or farming look like for you at this point of your life?
We live on a historic farm in the south of Georgia. So Savannah, Georgia is on the coast and it's about 100 miles east of us. So I live in the area, the region called the Coastal Plains, which would have been under the Pleistocene Sea eons ago. The ground is sandy loam, really verging towards sand. So we were living in Vermont 15 years ago, but wanted to move back to my home. I'm from South Georgia originally, and we wanted to move back and really settle in. We knew the climate crisis was hitting us, and we wanted to get more prepared for that. My husband and I both love farm life. We love, a rural existence. So we began to look for a farm, and we found a perfect, gorgeous farm. The farmhouse is built in 1850. I'm in a separate room. It's built on the old colloquial traditional architecture, which is the kitchen is separated from the house. And so the house is, you have to cross this breezeway of about 20 feet and you get into the house, and I'm in the kitchen part now. That was in the old days, all the cooking was by a wood stove. And if the kitchen caught fire and burned, you might be able to save your house. So a house built of longleaf pine, 1850, 46 acres. We have in the past 15 years, we've had small amounts of lots of animals. So our herd of cows has been up to maybe 25. Right now it's probably down to 8, and we are aging, my husband and I, and we don't have a bull right now. We're really lessening our numbers in general. But we've done everything here. We have a small orchard. The things that do the best here are honestly citrus and also blueberries. We try lots and lots of other things like gummy berries and persimmon. We have lots and lots of things. Mulberries do really well here. So here at the farm, there is never a point in the course of a year that we don't have some kind of fruit available to eat. Like across the room, last night the temperature got down to 25. So we brought in a lot of citrus. So there are boxes of oranges that we didn't pick the kumquats, but you can walk right outside the door and there's lemons there, kumquats here, and they will stay on the tree until early spring when the first mulberries arrive. That would be late February, early March. That is an amazing existence. In the early days here, we were market farmers. We carried our wares to our produce to Statesboro, which is a college town, and also to Savannah, which is a tourist town. But there's the money is, as you know, the money is in a rural area where people aren't trained to go to farmers markets. The money is tough. We always made the most money by teaching workshops here, and we taught workshops in seed saving and cheese making, simple cheeses like mozzarella and ricotta, in fermentation, in processing chickens. And that was fun. We educated a lot of people. It did really well. But as the years passed, we just mainly we grow about a quarter of an acre of produce just for ourselves, our family, our neighbors, and we have about, I would say, a half to 1 acre in fruit trees and fruit shrubs, and then the rest is in pasture that has cows, mule, horses. We have lots of chickens. We do the Joel Salatin chicken tractor method, and it just goes on from there. We have a wonderful animal called a guinea. It's an African fowl, and we don't feed them at all. They just roam naturally. They roost in the trees at night. They eat ticks, all kinds of bugs, but we have them here, to keep Lyme disease down. So that's life now. I want to say one more thing before I turn the mic back to you, Dan, and that is we live an extremely rural existence. It's 13 miles to the nearest small village of Reedsville, Georgia. 13 miles. We live on a dirt road that's 2 miles long. Both ends connect with really vast properties that are hunting lodges, or north of us is a prison, a farm prison that's 10,000 acres. There are 3 homes on this road, and total number of people, including our new baby, is 6 people on this road. It's just there are many days where, I mean, almost really nobody, the mail deliverer will come down our road, but almost nobody comes down. So it's a kind of life that is not that easy. It's very difficult if you need to be seen to validate yourself. But it's a life incredibly rich in relationships with non-human species, in real relationships with animals and with plants and with trees. And that is my pursuit in life, is a relationship with place in general, and with the ancestors that still walk this place, and also with the more than human species that I live with.
Thanks so much for walking through, both the scope of the place and what you've done there, but also just that last part about the intimate relationship that you've chosen to live with the place. I've been reading your work since The Seed Underground, and I've often wondered how much farming or seeds takes place in your daily life. But it does sound like it's maybe more than I imagined, and that's I just kind of, I guess, assumed a bit that it was more writing was your days, but it does sound like that's part of your days, but it's there's a bigger world that you're living in, a place, I guess.
And that has changed over the 15 years. So I would say 15 years ago, the farm was huge. I would get up every morning and write, but the farm took up hours and hours a day. And so slowly that balance has shifted over. And the farm doesn't take that much time now, really. A lot of things are established and growing on their own. So we have to do small things like in a drought, make sure things are watered or prune fruit trees in the winter. We recently had to rebuild a small greenhouse. So let me, at this point, Dan, if you don't mind, speak to seeds. When I wrote The Seed Underground, I did write it as a person just worried about the future of food itself, knowing that not many people knew what was happening to our seed supply and therefore didn't understand what was happening or could happen to our food supply. So that worry, and then my, complete passion for gardening and for seeds, that worry was foremost. But I've quickly realized that, people began to send me seeds. It's like, oh, these are my grandmother's Christmas bell peppers, and, please help keep them alive. I can't keep all seeds alive. I am incredibly grateful to people like you. I'm grateful to seed farmers. I'm grateful to the Seed Savers Exchange. I'm just totally grateful to the farmers, the small farmers, to everybody who understands this and works to keep all of the seed genetics alive. So what I have done instead is focus on a very few crops that I can plant year after year without a ton of effort. And then so for example, my absolute favorite crop is Seminole pumpkin. And we grow these every year. They're incredibly prolific. They're very disease resistant and bug resistant. One pumpkin is just about the size, to feed one small family in a meal. You can bake it, stuff it with rice, and you have enough for 2 meals. They're beautiful, beautiful pumpkins. Like if you want to survive a crisis, this would be a pumpkin. It lasts for over a year in storage. It's amazing. I have grown this pumpkin for, I don't know, over a decade. I have mailed out really probably 1,000 packets of seeds. Um, and that's all I can do. I can't keep your grandmother's white zinnia alive. One person just can't do it. And so that's where I am. I'm not just a writer. I am a gardener, and I am trying to do my tiny little part. The other thing that the other reason I wrote The Seed Underground was for hope. My first book allowed me to visit a lot of young people on college campuses everywhere, and they would be so hopeless. Like so many people right now are so hopeless. But I saw such incredible hope in the local food movement and the small farm movement. And I wanted to acknowledge that and document it and also encourage people who, might be told by their parents that it's not a viable life, but maybe could listen to me say it's a beautiful life.
It's interesting you mentioned hope, because one of the quotes that I brought up from the Seed Underground is like the first line is, the assumption is that hope is a prerequisite for action. And I won't go to the whole quote, but the last line is, why doesn't anybody ever talk about love as motivation to act? And I love that in your writing. And I love this. You brought it up right now. One thing with the seed underground that I found, I don't think I noticed at the first reading, but on rereading, there seemed to be a tension between seeds and the stories that come with them. And then, I don't know if I'd say good seed, but adapted seed to a region. And just there's a lot of a dialogue between both the importance of keeping seeds and culture and the stories, but also making sure that seeds are adapted to areas that they are, and that they're there to support us as, I guess, the world changes. And maybe for those who haven't read this book, and they should, it's a journey over, I'm not sure how long, but you meet with many seed keepers throughout the book in all kinds of different contexts, some very small and some larger. So I just want to throw that in for context. But am I right in thinking about that? There's a little bit of a tension that you're drawing between keeping seeds specifically for stories and culture, and keeping seeds to be bioregionally adapted and to support a farm system?
Well, it's so interesting that you present it like this, Dan, because honestly, I'm listening avidly because I never thought about it like this. But maybe you're right. I want you to say more if you don't mind, and let me ask you a clarifying question. So, so we the same family could be saving the same seed, and they all live, a half a mile apart. So the genetics of that seed are going to be similar, and they all may come up with different names for what the seed is. This family may forget that it's called this, the Georgia pearl bean, and this family may call it, the earring pearl bean. But it's the same genetics. And is that the tension you mean? That we don't have the affordable, accessible technology to know which seeds are genetically different from others, and so we just save them all.
Before I continue that, I don't mean tension in a negative sense that, it has to be one thing or another. I'm looking for and I recognize you wrote this book a while ago, so I'm not going to insist that you remember everything that you've ever wrote in detail. So, okay, I'll just read some of this here, because I highlighted and put 3 little stars next to it because it spoke to me specifically. But all this talk of the gardener participating in plant breeding led me to one of many agricultural epiphanies. Many people will disagree with me on this, and in many ways I know they're right. What I realized for myself is that I don't have to grow a seed just because it has unique genetics. What I grow also has to produce and thrive. It seems hard-hearted, but one seed is lost forever and another is recovered or created. Sure, Will Bonzo was right that I can't play God, but my personal job is to garden well, feed my family and community, and make a bit of a living at it. Someone else can save the genetically diverse but functionally weak cultivars. If an heirloom isn't working well, I believe turn it into something that is.
Oh gosh. So no, I understand exactly what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just the decision of you could become completely overwhelmed trying to save every seed in the world. And for me, that is exactly what happened. I just chose the seeds that do brilliantly here on my farm. So I think you're right, Dan, to use the word tension. There is a tension there. You can hear it in the piece that you read. You hear that tension, which is almost a little bit of guilt.
I've been growing seeds for nearly 25 years now, and I do know at the beginning, you keep everything that there is, and at a certain point, some of it's just space. Some of you realize, that tomato doesn't taste as good as I don't really like it. So should I keep it? And sometimes I know other people might not. There's not many other sources of it. So it is a tough thing. And you already mentioned before that you can't save everybody's seeds. So that's coming around to that same point.
But would you tell me what you do in this situation? So if this tomato doesn't taste as good as this one and you love this one, do you just slowly quit growing that tomato?
Well, so we have a seed company, and if as long as the seed is still good, we will keep selling it. And I guess there's a couple factors in it. If we can sell 1,000 packs a year, we're going to grow that tomato, whether I think it tastes good or not, because taste is personal. But if it's something that doesn't sell as well, there are things that don't sell as well, but I love, or people on our farm love, and we will keep. So I think in the case of something that we don't love and that there isn't a big customer demand for, we probably won't grow it again. We do have a bunch of seed. And every now and then somebody says, I bought this from you from 12 years ago. And they send me a picture of this ratty seed pack. And they're like, you don't carry it anymore. And I'm like, I don't, but I do have some seed and I will send it to them free. And I say, I can't guarantee it's going to germinate, but more likely than not, there'll be some seed that germinates and then that can be in their hands. So I think that that's kind of the way that our role is. And I mean, our main goal is to have seed that does well in our bioregion and that, supports the customers we have in our farm and our community. And there's going to be choices. It's not easy. There's always choices we make. And so we're always choosing what grows well and what tastes well. And in a certain part, there's a term that Organic Seed Alliance talks about, like the heirlooms of tomorrow. So like we're part of developing those varieties that are going to be important in our region in the future, or at least I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. No, that sounds like a perfect plan.
So this episode, if all goes well, is going to be released on New Year's Eve. And one of the reasons I wanted to time it with that is, this is, it's a good time as a new year begins to set, I guess, their resolutions and stuff, but kind of just place yourself in the intentions you want for the year. And I know, so I don't know if it's actually released or about to be released, but a book on placekeeping. I think this is another version that you have from a course called Journey in Place. So what I wanted to bring you on is there's about what it means to be in place and the concept of placekeeping, because I think, kind of going back to that hope piece, a lot of folks nowadays aren't sure how to relate to this world that they live in. And I find this is something that can really give a guidance to bring people forward. So would you want to talk to us about that?
I would love to talk to you, and thank you for seeing the importance. I recently read a book called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I I have a new baby. She's an adopted baby because I'm an older mom. And so I'm having to really pay attention to productivity because my work day got cut in half. My husband and I, flipper back and forth between us every 3 hours. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get some information from this book. Tim talks a lot about if you're doing online things, you would do automations. I mean, so somebody puts in a seed order to your seed company and they get an automated reply. And part of what he says is if if there's going to be no retirement for you, he wrote the book maybe in 2008 when we had this big financial crisis and lots of people lost their retirements. So if you knew that you were working in your life and you would not get a retirement, then why wouldn't you be, as life went on, taking many retirements all the time? So this is Tim's ideas. He says his advice was to make yourself like global, to be able to go work in Spain for a month, go work in Moab for a month, go to Austin for a month. And I was reading that book and just thinking, like, so much of modern society driven by capitalism and now the intersection of capitalism and technology is asking people to uproot from places. And yet, we as human beings have ancestral, evolutionary relationships with place. We are losing those relationships because capitalism, industrialism asks us to leave our homelands, our ancestral places for college, for careers, for opportunities in Paris all the time. And I think and this is why I wrote the book. I think so. What happened is the COVID pandemic hit us, and we were all required to settle in place. And some people who were used to being global, who were used to being citizens of the globe and globally mobile, were freaking out. They had no idea how to be in place. I was given a talk at a Berry college, which is in the north of Georgia, and a student in the front row. You might have read this because it's in that book. She during the Q&A, she raised her hand and asked this question: "How do you learn to be in place?" She's been told her whole life that you should be placeless. You know, the place doesn't matter. And every place looks the same. This little village has a McDonald's. This little village has a McDonald's and a General Dollar. And and so we lose these cultures that had to do with place, and we lose this. Wallace Stegner said, "Tell me where you're from and I'll tell you who you are." And now I can tell you where I'm from, and you can't tell me who I am because it's going to be the same as everybody else. I think this is a huge loss. I think that if we become knowledgeable of our places, if we affiliate with them, if we learn about them, study them, commit ourselves to them, begin to even get deeper, like express our love for them in our activism, in our art, in our writing, and then even get to the point where we remyth them. We re-story ourselves into the landscapes. I think we're happier people. I think we're people with more of a sense of groundedness, more of a sense of belonging. I think I think the relationship with place is complicated, but like all relationships that are complicated, I think relationship with place can help us do justice to human complexity, to human these incredible feelings of human isolation. And yeah, I'm fascinated with that relationship. I'm fascinated with it in myself and with others. And I'm horrified that we are telling young people in 2025 to ignore place. I think that we're made of places. I think that we survive because of place. All of our food, all of our water, all of our everything comes to us through place. All of our shelter, the wood we use to build our homes. And I think that we ignore place at our peril.
Maybe I should have asked this question at the beginning. Can you tell us what a place is or what place is?
Oh my gosh. This is a great question. And it's a question that has no answer because you get to decide. So I think place happens on many different scales. And when we were doing so, what happened was at the end of 2023, I decided I'm going to teach a basic correspondence course through my Substack is called Trackless Wild. I'm going to teach this correspondence course called Journey in Place, which is really teaching people how to go deeper in a place rather than how to travel around the world and not connect to any place. And if I'm going to teach it, I have to be, doing some deep thinking and deep problem solving myself. So we started January 1st of 2024. People signed up through my Substack and over 600 people signed up. It wasn't just a sign up. They had to pay $99 to subscribe to the Substack, and that would get them a copy of the book, which is the copy that you have, Dan. You have the course edition of the book. At the end of the year, I promised that I would put all these explorations, one a week, into this book, and that's the copy that you have. 600 people signed up at $99 each, which lets you know that people are desperate also to figure this out. So, one of the first exercises is choose your place. What's it going to be for you? It can be what I realized is place is active on multiple levels in any one person. For me, my place is my farm. That's 46 acres. It's a piece of land that I happen to own, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. It's a piece of land that I can control in that I can plant trees here. I don't have to ask anybody except perhaps my husband, are you okay if I plant a sycamore out here by the road? Right? But my place is also the entire wiregrass region, which is the coastal plains where this ecosystem of longleaf pine wiregrass once existed. That's a huge place. That's 93, historically, 93 million acres. So that's the answer. You get to decide. The entire globe is not your place because I can drop with a parachute into your place and I can see that it's different from my place. The ecosystem is different, the light is different, the tree species are different, the people are different. The people talk differently, they eat differently. So I would say, in general, a place is going to be an area special to you where things are similar across that place.
And it could be an urban place as much as it could be a rural place.
100%. This is a lesson. I have a developmental editor who helped me with that book when I decided to bring the course edition out into a trade version. She lives in New York City. She's a naturalist. She loves nature. She sees hawks flying from, she lives on the 20th floor of a building, and a bee flew in her window. She sees hawks flying. She can look down at the river. She definitely has guided me to let me know that every place is a place, no matter how much the built environment has replaced native ecosystems.
Is there something I should ask you about this topic before pivoting into other topics?
I think that maybe we should spend a minute, Dan, looking at the intersection between place and seeds. And I haven't prepared this answer, so I think this is the idea of terroir, that a crop grown in this place is going to contain different minerals and nutrients than a crop grown, the same crop grown in a different place, and thus it's going to taste differently than any other place. The place I live is the place where grow Vidalia onions. Vidalia onions are not one species, they're not one variety of onions. It's a handful of varieties. But what makes it this incredibly sweet onion that some people say can, just can be eaten out of hand like an apple is the soil here. It's called Altamaha grit. It's a soil that's characterized by these tiny orange rocks of ferrous oxide, and it grows this beautiful onion. That is the terroir of my place. Just jump in here. There have to be other ways. So not only the taste of the things grown in a specific area, but also the stories of the food, of the foodways and the food crops from that area. All these things combine to, you know, I talk so much about place and natural history, place and native ecosystem, but what humans have brought to the place, our cultures that have developed there, are equally as important in understanding the place and being a citizen of that place. So, for example, the south of Georgia is mostly settled. Once native people, the Muskogee Creek people, were pushed out in these kind of fake agreements, with these fake agreements, and white settlers moved down. They were steadily moving down from Virginia, where folks had landed at Jamestown, into North Carolina and South Carolina, and then Georgia. And, for a long time, the Altamaha, I live about a mile or two from the Altamaha River, and it was just this dividing line between native land and settler land. And then it was opened, and white settlers pushed south. Most of these settlers came from the British Isles, where they had eaten, I guess it would have been oats. But here, oats don't grow very well. But we grow corn really well. Like we're people of maize here, people of the corn. And what they began to do was to grind corn to become grits. So grits, although, you probably can't even buy grits in the supermarket where you live, grits are a staple food here. I visit my mom on Sundays. She lives about 20 minutes from me in the next county. And on Sunday, our Sunday lunch is always grits, bacon, and eggs. It's my mom has cooked grits almost every day my entire life. So I think all that together is a great intersecting point between this love of seeds, this desire to see seeds continue, and wanting to understand the concept of place.
Yeah, I saw in a recent one of your newsletters that you're giving a course, or you're, I don't know, maybe hosting a course called Journaling Place, and I noticed that Melissa Dessa was one of the folks who would be one of the guests during that, and I just loved that you had chosen a seed keeper as one of the people to, I guess, it's just explore place with. So I do see how it kind of all ties together. I mean, I definitely, I'm convinced, right? I am somebody who's chosen to live in a place and to work with crops and to build a long-term relationship. So maybe I'm already part of the converted, but I do think it's just wonderful as a way to rediscover what we're part of. And that urban piece I mentioned, so many people live in cities now, and there still is potential for gardening, for growing, for being a seed keeper in those cases for the natural world.
Yeah, I think it's over 80% of us now live in urban areas. It's pretty incredible.
And so it's extra important in those cases to figure out how to keep the places that we're in, and how to have those relationships with them.
Yeah, well said.
If you're already a seed farmer, or even just thinking about harvesting seed from your plants for the first time, head over to seedgrowers.farm for my free seed grower resources. There is cross-pollination information, seed yield information, even a few seed spreadsheets. There's also a list of my favorite seed books and podcasts. While you're there, you can also sign up for my weekly newsletter to get seed grower tips and stories straight into your inbox. So head to seedgrowers.farm for my seed grower resources. Now, back to the show. So maybe here I'll pivot to kind of talking about seed a little bit more in depth. And this is something I like to do with each of the guests, is just talk shop about a crop that they work with. And when I mentioned this to you, you said you'd like to talk about okra. Do you want to tell us why you'd like to talk about okra, and then we could talk about it?
Okra is such a strange crop. It's got that mucilage in it, and so many people don't like okra. I was Okra grows, I live in the subtropics. I was born and raised in Georgia, of course, and okra grows extremely well in the heat and humidity that we have here. And so it's a really important food crop. A man gave me a long okra. I'd never seen a cowhorn okra before, but he gave me these pods of okra that were almost a foot long, and I call it Long County long okra, but they're beautiful okras. If there was a crop that I would pick to really promote in the world and say this will keep you alive, it has to be the Seminole pumpkin. But okra just has a I don't know, okra just has a really special place in my heart because of the foodways around me. How many dishes are made with okra? How many people still eat okra? How wrapped up okra is in the fabric of our culture here. Honestly, Dan, the same is true with field peas, cowpeas. So they have historically grown really well here. However, we're seeing influxes of disease, including, like fusarium wilts on tomatoes that are making tomato growing like practically impossible. It's the change in gardening in my short lifetime, which is 60 years, is it's stunning. It's unbelievable. And uh, I would choose field peas or cowpeas as my favorite crop because that would be a source of protein that's also vegetarian. But they are extremely difficult to grow these days without chemicals. So I honestly don't grow them much anymore. I grow one bean, and it's called running white butter bean. So it's a running butter bean. It puts out, butter bean pods that have 3 or 4, white lima bean like beans in them. It's also disease resistant, also incredibly prolific. It is still bearing at Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving, you can go out and pick a mess of running white butter bean and, shell them and have basically lima beans from your garden at Thanksgiving. So that's it. I could probably go on and on with my specific loves, and what crops I love, but yeah, I would just say okras. I'm enamored with okra. I'm enamored with red okras, with, long okras, short okras.
So what does okra look like in your garden?
So in my garden, what I really love are the ones that just seed naturally and they just come up. And that is mostly one called Hill Country Red Okra. It just comes back and comes back and comes back. And I love that because I don't have to do anything. I just let the little plant grow and there it is. But we garden in beds, and usually the beds are pretty long, maybe as much as 20 feet long. And so we'll have like a half a bed of okra. And that would be maybe only 20 plants, 21 plants. But, okra is funny because you have to put on some gloves. It's got these little prickly leaves, and put on some gloves and cut it. And 2 days later, you're cutting it again, and you're always cutting it when it's short. And to grow seed, you have to let some of it grow out long. And I mean, think about this, Dan, you know this, and you may grow okra, but if you cut it and the plant gets bigger and bigger and you're cutting it and cutting it, and then you decide, I'm going to quit cutting this okra so the rest can go to seed, then you're training that okra seed to always be like the one that is born last, right? You're not training it to be the early producer of okra. So in my garden, there'll be some plants where I don't harvest them at all, and then some that do get harvested, and then later are just left to go.
Are you letting your okra mostly self-seed itself, or are you also harvesting some that you bring in so that you have a guaranteed stash for the future?
Oh, I bring it in. Yeah, no, I bring it in. I let if the what I find is the pod just dries out in the garden, and I cut it off and bring it in, and then just strip it down and the seeds just fall right out. It's really super simple to save okra seed if you're only growing, one variety.
When you leave pods on the plant, do you keep harvesting the smaller ones later, or you just let all the pods on the plant?
No, sometimes I do it all different ways, but you can do that too. Just leave some, keep harvesting, maybe leave a few more, keep harvesting. Yeah, I just try to do I have so this word diversity, I think, can apply to any part of our life. And that's the way I seed save. It's just with, this great diverse number of ways. With the Seminole pumpkin, however, I pretty much try to save the seed out of every pumpkin.
To have a genetic diversity of plants.
That's exactly right. And then, so, when I come in and bring one and cook it, then I just scoop out the seeds and wash them off and put them on a platter to dry. And I love this idea at the end of the season of all of them get mixed together. They all go out to in packages. And in my garden, there's the whole mixture of. So you're a pro. I'm not a pro. I'm just an inflamed amateur at this.
Well, I don't know that you need to be a pro to keep seed or even to keep good seeds. So that's one thing with the podcast. I really want folks to be inspired to try it on their farm because so few market gardeners take the time to save any of their own seed, and so few gardeners also. It's not part of our gardening traditions anymore. And I don't think you have to be a pro.
Well, this somehow this that brought to mind this idea of where you live. You have to dig up brassicas, correct, and bring them inside. Isn't that correct? And overwinter a brassica?
To be reliable, yes, depending on how cold it is in the winter, and how much snowfall and whether it rains in the middle of the winter to melt that snow. Like, there are some conditions where we can get overwintered brassicas without that, but that maybe is like 1 out of 3 or 4 years. And so to be reliable, we'll dig stuff up and plant it in a greenhouse to overwinter or bring it into a cold room and then plant it out. Yeah, so it's a very different climate than you're living in.
Oh, it's so different, and it's so easy here because you just leave. So most people, most market gardeners or just gardeners would, you would get to the end of the season with this, whatever it is, a mustard, and it would get torn out. But the strange thing is if you leave it in over the winter, the next spring you have this beautiful flowering mustard, and then you have a whole seed crop. Yeah, some of it is really simple, and you wonder why more people don't see that, you know, that flower head, it's not just a beautiful flower head, that it dry, and in there are the seeds, and they're just gonna fall out when you pick them, put them in a bag, and they just fall out. It's amazing.
So I'm going to ask you one more okra question before we get up to the wrap-up questions. You talked a little bit about isolation. Do you just grow one okra variety, or do you grow a few and it's an evolving population?
So occasionally I can grow one and harvest it at the beginning, but while growing another one that I then harvest later. But I have tried to simplify everything. So if it's usually per year one okra, one type of okra. So bagging corn, hand pollinating, you're probably never going to see me doing that. For fun, I honestly would, Dan, like to be a real seed breeder or seed grower, but in this life, it's just not really going to happen in this life, I don't think, because of my art. My main goal in life is to leave a legacy of stories that are so powerful that they help the world get, the wild places get saved. And yeah, and it's just so important to do that. And time wise, I may never be the one who breeds seeds.
I must say that I've really been impacted and enjoy your writing, and I think it has pushed me to better understand why it is I choose to do the stuff that I do. So thank you for choosing that vocation. So I'll slip into the wrap-up questions. What would you tell your younger seed-growing self?
I should have prepared for these questions, shouldn't I? What would I tell my younger seed growing self? No, I don't. Give me a minute. This will have to be edited out. Let me just think about this.
Take your time.
And I only recently discovered your podcast, so I just listened to the first, and I saw that you had interviewed Chris Smith. So I don't even have an idea of how other people have answered it. I don't know that there's anything I would tell my younger seed saving self, except that you're on the right track. There's nothing really that I would change. I loved seeds. I loved them so much that I wrote a book about them. I have a small seed library now where I keep lots of varieties of seed.
That can be your answer. That's a good answer.
Thank you. Thank you. But I think that is it, Dan. It's just like this is a source of enduring love. These seeds, this pursuit of seeds. Keep it up. Maybe I would have interviewed more seed keepers, tried to find more older local people in my place, in my community who were saving seed. And yeah, that's enough. Thank you.
So, what would you say to market growers or gardeners to inspire them to start growing seed?
So I was raised on a junkyard. My family was extremely poor growing up, dealing with poverty, looking at poverty, seeing how poverty affects people. It is another of my lifelong passions. And so I remember coming at seeds as a way like, wait, I just purchased this pack of seeds for $1, but now it if I save this cucumber, this old cucumber and cut it open, those seeds are gonna be viable, and I'm gonna have $10 worth of seeds from this pack that I paid $1 for, or $20 worth of seed. I remember as a young girl seeing that promise in a seed. And I think about that with market growers and gardeners, that not only is it a joy to save seeds, uh, for the stories of them, for just the idea that you are continuing your own genetic diversity, you are settling a plant into a place, but also you can save so much money by saving your own seed.
So, is there something that I should have asked you that I haven't?
I don't think so. I This is too bad because I'm gonna think of something the minute that we sign off.
That's just the way it is.
It is the way it is. No, there's nothing you should have asked me, but I wanna say again how much beauty and joy I get being in the garden. Like, in the book, The Seed Underground, I write about standing in these pigeon peas. The flowers are red, and having a little family of hummingbirds. I was watching the parents of these hummingbirds teach the babies how to fly as I stood in the pigeon peas are really tall. As I stood among this little crop of pigeon peas in a bed in my garden, so many scenarios worked themselves out in the garden. So many situations of beauty and wonder and curiosity and amazement. It's just a source of really of hope, like you said before. Just such a source of hope. I wanna say one more thing, and that is I wanna thank you personally for choosing this profession, and not just the profession, but also choosing to spread word about seeds through your books, through the podcast, your blog, through everything you do. You are also a source of inspiration and wisdom and knowledge for so many people, and I thank you. I thank you for your mentorship program. I just thank you so much for all that. And then let's broaden that out a little bit more and thank everybody who has come to understand the importance of seeds and seed diversity and the tastiness of different food crops in our world. And thank everybody for keeping seeds alive and growing food for all of us.
Well, thank you for those words. And I think that's a really great sentiment for us to be ending on. And I guess the last question is, how can people find out more about what you're doing?
I would send people first to my Substack, Trackless Wild. So it's tracklesswild.substack.com. There is I look at wildness as this continuum, which started with the hunter-gatherer, and the model of the world or the landscape for the hunter-gatherer would be wilderness, and it moves into a rural existence where the model is a farm, on into an industrial existence where the model would be a factory, and then into a technological existence where the model is maybe a bank of AI computers. And Dan, I've always been I'm a nature writer. I love wilderness. I promote wilderness. I go out in wilderness. But I'm most comfortable really at that borderland between wilderness and the farm. That, I stand at the edge of the field where the woods start. That's really where my heart is and where my soul is in that place. And so even though the Substack is named Trackless Wild, it's really about life on the farm here. It's about wild things. It's about how we can live radically sustainable lives. I try to just write for nature forward people about just how we can love the planet better. So that's the best place to find me. But if you are interested in my books or writing courses that I teach, I'm at www.janisseray.com. And Janisse is spelled Janisse.
And I'll put links to those in the show notes so folks can find that also. One place I'll mention also that you can be found is in the peas. There's the latest issue of Crop Stories from Utopian Seed Project is about field peas, and you wrote an article in it. And there's a lot of other people also, but I think that's another place people can find more seedy stuff too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking this time to talk with us today.
The pleasure truly is all mine. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here and happy I am to be talking about this subject. And again, I'm so grateful for all you do. And if I can ever be of service to you or to anyone else, there are plenty of ways to reach me. There's a contact form on my website, or you can find my email address or even phone number anywhere online. So if there's anything that I can do to help a person build hope or hold on to a dream or do something difficult, I would love to be able to do that. So thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. I hope you have, I guess Happy New Year is what I should say, even though we're not recording this at this moment, but Happy New Year. Have a great 2026.
And the same to you. Happy New Year.
And that's episode 47 of the Seed Farmer Podcast. Thank you, Janisse, for being on the podcast. I encourage you all to go read Janisse's books, at least The Seed Underground. You're listening to this. You're going to love the seed stories. But I think her other books are also really great. You should also pick up a copy of Crop Stories from Utopian Seed Project to read Janisse's essay and the other essays in it. Thank you to Sophia Sildalton for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at sophiasildalton.com. Thank you to Molly Brisebois for editing this episode. And thank you so much for joining me in these conversations with seed farmers. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to my newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/support-podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming, and have a great 2026.